Podcast, a platform created to entertain, educate, and evolve the modern-day deer hunter. I guess. What's been the biggest general inquiry? So you and I were just chatting, and you said you've been fielding a large volume of inquiries about the cellular camera. Is there one in particular that stands out, or is there like a handful of general inquiries that you could right now, off the top of your head, kind of summarize?
Yeah, there's probably, I don't know that there's one that kind of is leading the pack, but there's definitely two or three that have been most common over the last, 10 days or so since we launched the render. The first would probably be inquiries on the data plans, and then how those relate to what that's going to cost an actual customer to run for a season. And we, for us, because we've had our hands on this product since September of 2017, all of it is almost second nature. So we forget sometimes that this could be foreign or new to some people who are a little less familiar with these cellular wireless products. But the data plans for the render are there's no annual contract, so everything is month to month. So that allows the consumer to run these cameras for 2 or 3 months and only pay for 2 or 3 months. There's no, you're not locked into any type of contract. So to us, that made most sense, because as a tool, it's most valuable, only to use during the hunting season, where that data is, that most recent information is most relevant. So how that lays out is, for every month the camera is active, there's a $7 line charge. And that's almost a pass-through cost from Verizon. So Verizon is charging us $6 and some odd cents to have that device activated on their network, and we just rounded that up to a whole number. So we're not getting rich off these data plans like some people think. But so there's a $7 line charge per device per month, and then the data starts at $3 on top of that, and $3 will get you 25 megabytes, which is about 500 photos. And we say about 500 photos because we're paying by the data consumed, and that's what we're charging for. And how that data is used is really up to the end consumer and how the camera's set up. Some of the nighttime photos are as little as 15 kilobytes, and the daytime stuff could be 50 60 kilobytes.
Is that because they're not colored images, that it's just less data? It's a black and white image?
Yes, you're correct. Yep, absolutely. Yep, it's just a smaller file.
Yep.
Less data there. And on the other side of that, we know the camera also has video capability. So if you're running videos, then that data gets eaten up even faster. So if you have one camera, for the average customer, if there's one camera, it's never going to be any cheaper than $10 a month, right? So there's a $7 line charge, and then the lowest data plan is $3. So it's never going to be cheaper than $10. But with those pooled plans, what that allows you to do is have several devices activated and put on a shared plan where you're sharing the data across multiple devices. So there's actually a possibility you could drive that cost down to cheaper than $10 a camera if you're buying larger volumes of data and you have multiple devices on a single plan. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of general summary, I guess.
Just for in layman's terms, you could compare it to like a cell phone, right? If you go into your cell phone and you want to send some photos or videos to your friend, obviously it uses more data to send 10 photos than one photo, and it might use more data to send a 90-second video clip than it does to send 30 photos, right? So that's kind of what it all breaks down to
Absolutely.
is, and file size, like you're talking, I'm assuming, depending on where you have your megapixel
Hmm.
set will vary it, right?
Yep. 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 Yeah. Yeah. The internal settings of the camera, as far as the native image size that's written to the card, all has an effect on how far those photos are actually compressed. Now um, the video resolution is 640 by 360, so it's already compressed super 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 small. Um, and there's no really, there's only one setting for that when the wireless function is turned on.
Okay.
So the video compression kind of is what it is. But as far as on still images, yeah, the native image size that you have selected inside the camera will affect the actual compressed image file size.
Now, I know from conversation with you, you've said obviously you can turn the cellular capabilities off and just run it like a normal trail camera, but let me ask you this. When you are running it and transmitting all your data via the cellular system, is it still internally storing all photos and videos?
Yes, yes. So how that works is, you still have to use an SD card in the camera. And so when the camera's trigger takes a photo, it's actually writing to we'll call it an HD folder, to where the full resolution of the photos and videos are actually being written to a folder on that card. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's a thumbnail. After that happens, after the full size images are written to that folder, then they are compressed to a thumbnail folder, or compressed folder on that card, and that is where the camera is actually taking those files and connecting to the Verizon network and uploading them to the server.
Okay.
So when you actually open that SD card, like if you were to pull that SD card and throw it in the computer, when you open it up, you're actually going to see two folders there. You're going to see the full size or HD folder, and then there'll be a thumbnail folder. Now, the thumbnail folder almost acts like a queue. So depending on how you have your upload frequency set inside that camera, there shouldn't be any images or data on that thumbnail folder, because once it's uploaded, it's taken out of the queue. So you're only left with the files on the HD folder.
Do you ever step back and look at these things and go, man, I'm a little bit surprised that it's gotten to this from like what we started dealing with when, I mean, you're the same age as I am, mid 30s. You
Uh-huh.
started dealing with trail cameras probably the same time I did, and they had the
Yep.
big 9-volt battery. It was that what it was, a big the big square battery,
Yep.
and now they're writing files and converting files and transmitting files. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. That's just, I don't know if I'm surprised to see where it is now. Like, sitting here, I'm not surprised. But if you would ask me that, whatever, 10 or 15 years ago, I would have said, yeah, no way. There's no way a trail camera is going to send pictures, wirelessly to a phone or a computer. That's impossible. But just knowing, on the technical side, where the world is headed as far as being connected in IoT, and um, yeah, the possibilities of what these devices can do over the next 5 to 8 years. It's actually almost, it's a little bit scary, honestly, because you start thinking about a somewhat simple device in a trail camera, and what the capabilities that has, and then think about the possibilities of your handheld device, your mobile phone, and what that can do. It gets a little scary, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, you can hold that thing in your hand or step back and look at it on a tree and know that, oh yeah, it takes pictures and they come to my phone.
Hmm.
But you start talking about how that actually happens and writing files, converting files, uploading data, and it's like, I don't know. It's kind of fascinating. I'm not like a big tech person.
Hmm.
I kind of, I don't know. I'm probably a good person to have a conversation with because I can see it from the outside of somebody that's never dealt with or doesn't care to deal with technology. I've definitely had my days where it's like, oh, I wish I could just go back to a flip phone or paper invoices. But then, there's days where it's like, man, it is pretty sweet what you can do, like you just said, from a handheld device. And now, something, I don't know that anything's gonna give you as much of advantage when running trail cameras as actually using cellular cameras. And I guess we can leapfrog into that right now because you said what you originally, so 2017 you actually had like you started working on this, but how long have you actually had like an active product out in the woods?
We've had our first working samples were in our hands January of last year, so January of 2018. Um, we got our hands on the very two first working samples, and then we've gone through. I think the PP samples that we signed off on were number 24, 25, 26, somewhere in there. So
Okay.
um, we went through 12 different sets of samples. So 26, 12 or 13. So 24, 25, 26 samples of is really what we went through in 12 months before we had a final product. And some of that is, some of that was on the hardware end, and some of that was, software, firmware of the device. Some of that was actually firmware on the hardware end. Um, we were actually in the OD portal for so long that Verizon actually changed some of their requirements
Mm.
for their certification in the OD portal. Um, as of October 2018, Verizon mandated that all connected devices needed to have OTA functions on the hardware end. So that was something new and something that really no one prior to that had ever had any experience with. It kind of freaked us out a little bit when when they first gave us, they first sent that addendum over and told us we had to meet those requirements. We were like, well, what the hell does that mean? Um, but no, it's been a long time coming, man. There's a lot of advantages to using these things. Over the last 12 months, we haven't really used them selfishly in the woods as far as, trying to gain advantage as a hunter.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so most of our testing over the last 12 months, I mean, we do, we do like um, isolated spot testing, in certain environments as far as the camera functions. But most of the research and development process is a little more technical, um, that we kind of keep close, monitoring eyes on, and documentation. Um, so even though we've had them for 12 months, we really haven't used them in a whole lot of hunting scenarios.
Yeah, that's
If
you
if
just
that
took.
makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. No, well, I mean, you took the question basically right out of my mouth, but I was wondering if, you had been planning and scheming and figuring out like how I'm certain that you've been at least thinking about it. I mean, you have to have a game plan here going forward for this next year of how you're going to use this camera versus how you've used your traditional camera, right?
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, there's on a topical level, there's a ton of advantages. You don't have to. You cut intrusion down. You're not going into an area every couple of weeks and blowing the place up or putting pressure on it. Um, but the biggest thing for me is this device is actually buying you time back. Um, Time from going, and everyone enjoys going to the woods and pulling cards and seeing what's on there, and I'm all for that. And I'll continue to run regular cameras in certain applications, but knowing that it's going to save me a couple hours every month, to me, that's what the product, that's the advantage of the product is allowing me to have 2 or 3 hours of my life back every month. Um, but on the hunting side of things, I mean, it almost comes down to personal hunting ethics,
Mm-hmm.
because you can put these things in beds and know when the deer's coming back to bed, whether or not a specific buck is there, um, and have that picture sent to your phone or have that video sent to your phone, and then being able to make a play on that is almost it's almost, I don't want to say it's not fair, because I mean deer can get up and walk anywhere he wants, I guess, but there's definitely some controversy there, and I'm not totally up to date with all the legislations across the country in different states, but they actually are legal in a few states.
Yeah, for Western hunting, I think, because guys can shoot a mile or 600 yards or whatever, they can have these things set up on game trails, and a lot of times, like, it's always interesting to me when I'm watching any kind of Western hunting content, and they're like, yeah, well, we saw him here late last night, so we're back in here first thing this morning and trying to get eyes on him. And I'm thinking, Jesus, that was a whitetail. Like, that's not the way it works. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we
Right,
saw him here last night. Cool. You'll never see him again in the rest of your life. You know?
right,
And
yeah,
so it's a completely different set of circumstances that those guys are dealing with out there. But I know what you're saying. There might not be anything that's as much. It's probably the most technological advantage that there's ever been when pursuing game, right? Is that fair to say?
yeah. I think so. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, being able to have I wouldn't call it live streaming or live information, but I mean, we have 25-second transmission times, which is, to my knowledge, is the fastest in the industry. So to have these things set up in the woods and have a deer's location in less than 30 seconds sent to your phone,
Right.
um, yeah, man, that's pretty damn powerful.
There's no doubt it's going to come down to personal, how you're going to regulate yourself at some point, but yeah, still a ton of variables there. I mean, you'd really have to invest some time in setting up or have the perfect set of circumstances to, um, I don't know, do something that I would justify not moral, for myself personally. I'm just thinking about what, if you how you could use it the wrong way. But I mean, let's face it, if you're going to use this thing the wrong way, you're probably already doing some shady shit. Uh,
Well, yeah, that's just it, and that's while we were at Harrisburg for 10 days, 9 or 10 days, talking to consumers and talking to customers, we actually had that conversation with a few people, and it's like it's it's 100% solely personal ethics. It's just the same thing. A guy could use a rifle in a shotgun state, drive down the road and shoot deer in a bean field.
mm-hmm.
Like, it's personal ethics. So, but at the same time, it's not a magic bullet either. It's definitely the way the market is trending is using cell cameras, but it's not like these things haven't been out for 4, 5, 6 years. There were 3G cameras when the 3G network was kind of the thing for carriers, I guess. And yeah, it helped people get on some deer, but it's not like you buy a cell camera and you're guaranteed to go out and kill a boone and crock a deer because you have a picture of them.
Right.
So there's it's still not the magic bullet.
I want to just jump back to one thing that you were just mentioning, and I really didn't even think about it. But the time in how the costs investment, like how that balances out. I've got a 15-minute drive out to my closest hunting property, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
what, maybe 10 miles each way or a little less.
Mm-hmm.
Driving a 4x4 pickup, there's an investment there in fuel, and in time. Like, a lot of times it's like, man, I could cut out of work early and go actually get these cards and know what's going on for this weekend. Like
Hmm.
anybody that's, conscious of how they're using their cameras obviously plans when they're, going there. They're not going at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on November 7th and stomping into their area and grabbing the car.
Right.
Certainly there's those people, but I would venture most of the guys that listen to this show aren't doing that. So, whatever, you can just sit in at work and you're not, I am not spending that gas money and that time driving out there. You'd probably recover the additional cost of what this camera is over a traditional camera, I would think, actually relatively quickly.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And to me, that's the real advantage of having a cellular or wireless camera is just that. It just frees up time to whether it's spending more time at work, spending time with your family, so you can spend more time in the woods. Happy wife, happy life. Yeah, it's all about saving time.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I always thought of it as a more expensive camera, and now that you mention that, probably pretty quickly, it's the when you actually sat down and wrote it out on paper at the end of the year, it's probably the less expensive camera.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And the novelty idea behind these things is everyone's like, oh, I want the picture sent to my phone. It's so cool. Yeah, it is cool on the topical level when you think of it in that nature, but like the advantage of the situation we just described about, not having to go and check cameras, saving the money and gas, saving the hours a month, you know, that's where, that's the advantage.
When on the technical side of that, if you're leaving that camera alone, when that card fills up, so you have a app that's paired with the
Mhm.
camera that you can go into your phone and access the functions of the camera. Is that correct?
Yes. So we partnered with a actual software company called Scout Tech, which they actually own the mobile application and the web portal. That program gives you full OTA functions over the camera, and OTA just is an acronym for over the air. Um, so anything you can physically do. So you're very familiar with the Lift 2s.
Yep.
Um, Anything you can do with that camera in your hand, anything. Format your SD card, update your firmware, take photos, take videos, change settings. You can do all of that from your mobile device or computer. Anything.
And that is when I heard that was the point where I went, whoa, all right, now we're
Right.
talking. Because that's, how in my head, and I'm sure in the past, it wasn't that way, right? You were,
Well, yeah, then there's still a lot of products that aren't that way. That application's free. It's free to download. All you do is go in and create a user account. It's super easy to register your cameras and get that thing fired up. But a lot of other companies have kind of these cookie cutter, white labeled mobile applications, and there's an upcharge to have those OTA functions,
mm.
and then there's an upcharge to download, high res images, and there's an upcharge for this and an upcharge for that. And for us, it was like,
So is that how they're making a profit on a lower margin? Can't like they sell the camera cheap, but they can monthly bring income in. Is just doing it.
I I think that that's definitely a revenue stream. I can't speak for
Sure. Yeah.
I can't speak for other companies and how they're making their money or what their margins are, but there is a little bit, there is some money to be made on the data end. There's not a lot because the majority of these people who are using devices are only going to run them for a couple months out of the year.
Right.
They're not. I
Right.
mean, there are some guys that security applications and different things that'll run them for 12 months out of the year, and that produces a small revenue stream. But the majority of guys, whitetail guys, are they're running these things from September to December, and then they're shutting them off. So, um, but yeah, for us, it was like, why would you create a device that its whole purpose is to have remote control over um, through a mobile device or PC if you're going to charge them extra to have that service? Like, it just didn't make any sense to us to have that program set up that way. So um, all of that is, like I said, it's a free app. All that, all the OTA functions. There's no upcharge there. Um, One of the cool things with Scout Tech, and it's really hard to talk about that system top to bottom without actually,
Sure.
having your hands on it, because it's super, super powerful. I mean, there's ways to sort photos, tag photos, sort your cameras. You can actually share devices and share photos with other Scout Tech account holders. You can basically give them viewership over certain cameras,
Mm-hmm.
or you could give them admin access to cameras. So, like, let's say you and I were on a lease, and we had 3 or 4 other guys with us, and we were running 10 cameras. Well, I went out and purchased 10 render cameras, and all of you and everyone on the lease also had a Scout Tech account. I could actually share those cameras with giving you guys viewership access and also admin access to kind of monitor those cameras, see what photos are coming through, and then also, like I said, have admin access where you can actually have control over the cameras as well. So that's free for up to 10. You can share devices with up to 10 people, and beyond that, you actually do have to purchase a business account. So I guess there is one upcharge
Man, I
on
could
the app.
see like an interesting that'd be like a unique opportunity for an outfitter that was really savvy and set up to, like, if you were going there for a week to hunt, they could say, hey, download this app and we'll they're
Mm-hmm.
like, the week that you're getting ready to go, you can be like seeing the photos of the deer that are there and just getting amped up, right?
Yep, absolutely. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. That's something that we're adding, in the process of adding right now, is kind of like a partners or a live feed page, landing page, where there will be live feeds to I guess public cameras. We're going to have a page dedicated with public cameras where anyone can go on and follow. So there'll be Exodus trail cameras. There'll be several live devices there where anyone on the road can go in and look and see what's going on with those cameras. But yeah, from an outfitter or a business standpoint, even like content creators, like hunting teams, to have a live device on that app for basically the world to kind of go in and
Right.
follow along. Like, it's a powerful tool to tell a story.
Yeah, it's a super powerful tool because essentially, like you said, it's hard to cover what that thing can do top to bottom. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're holding your mobile device, your cell phone in your hand, it's essentially the exact same as physically holding the camera in your hand and walking around with it day to day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, the only thing you cannot do on the mobile application is physically turn that camera on and off.
Okay.
That's it. Anything else you can do, you can format your SD card, delete photos, change settings, request status reports, update the firmware of the actual camera, update the firmware of the hardware inside the camera. Yeah, the
Do,
possibilities um, are pretty much endless.
do you feel like that, or is there still potential? Like, does that eliminate the the traditional walking up to your camera after it's been sitting for 3 months and the camera had an issue, and now you're finding out that you missed 6 weeks of photos? I mean, you can monitor battery life. Obviously, you would know in real time if the camera goes down or has an issue or a bear swipes the thing, right?
Yep. Yeah, basically you would know that in real time. So the device itself will send a status report once every 24 hours automatically. So that's like by default.
Really?
It's going to check into the server, and it's going to give you the status of the camera, which the status report gives you the battery life. It gives you how many photos have been taken on the monthly data cycle. It tells you the lifetime the number of lifetime photos taken on the actual device. It gives you how much card space you have left. It gives you how much data that camera has used, how much data you have left on your plan. It tells you the firmware. But yeah, I mean, it tells you all that stuff every 24 hours. And then there's also a OTA function where you can request that at any time, request that status report at any time. So at any point in time where you think that device is not, maybe not working or not connecting, if you're not getting a status report, then there's an issue. And you can, address it as you see fit.
That's so crazy, dude. All right, I am starting to get creeped out. Like, these things are powerful. Like, it sounds like a military application or something versus like a novelty hunting item. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we just missed a giant bid with DHS, very, very large bid, uh,
With who?
with the Department of Homeland
Oh,
Security.
okay.
They just purchased a ton of these cellular cameras to use along the southern border.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
bet.
so yeah, there's some. I'm not saying it's a military device, but they are definitely used in a lot of different security applications.
Lot of capacity for a big window of use, and yes, for security. Yeah, I was already thinking that too. Man, you got a cabin up north, like
Yep.
you got this thing just monitoring the driveway or the front door. Um,
hmm Well,
kind of.
one of the other cool things, just while we are talking about security, real quick, Scout Tech is actually working on overlaying some artificial intelligence inside their app where they'll have facial recognition. So there's, there's some crazy stuff happening in the technology side of things.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the cost monthly is for a home security system, and if you have a cabin that's had break-in issues or there's break-in issues in the area or outside even the cabin, I mean, yeah, property trespassing, all
hmm
that. I mean,
hmm
man, this thing outside of just monitoring for deer, yeah, if you have trespassing issues, look out, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I've thought about for years actually like hot gluing like antennas on my cameras so that they look like cellular cameras so that people think, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's not a bad thought. That's funny.
Um, but yeah, a lot of just a lot of capacity. So, but specifically on the hunting side, so let's just get into a little bit of like I guess how you do intend to use these. Obviously, the bedding thing is huge, right? Like
hmm
you can't screw up. I mean, if you're running traditional trail cameras, and you're gonna try to do it in a manner where you're not screwing up bedding, your only option really is to let that camera put that camera in there and let it run all season and then collect the yearly data. But
Right.
this changes that, right? So inside of that, obviously bedding has been the hot topic for whitetail hunting here in the last year. I guess touch on that and then what your other thoughts are, since I'm sure you've been putting some plans together as far as how you're actually going to physically use the camera to try to capitalize on deer.
Yeah. So there's really there's a couple of different things. Obviously, as you mentioned, the bedding thing has been the recent craze with all the beast style hang bang content being created, and more and more people getting into those aggressive style tactics. So you know, putting these things in bedding locations with an external power source, whether that's a solar panel or lead acid battery or whatever, and letting them run and having that data in real time, whether or not knowing those deer are in those bedding locations, is obviously pretty damn critical, especially if the hang and bang and beast style hunting is your thing. Um, Knowing that a deer is in a bedding area with a certain wind makes it a hell of a lot easier to go in and get set up on them when you have that information in real time. But on kind of another face of that would be access. Using these things, especially in the morning access, putting them on food sources, knowing where deer are at certain times of the day, to know that maybe you might have to change your access route to get to that, you know, point of interest, or the area that you plan to hunt. So, for example, you know, hunting mornings in October is kind of like been blackballed, I guess, by the industry. Like, oh, it's, you shouldn't hunt October mornings. But there's a lot of guys like Cody DeCristo who are killing good deer in early October in the freaking mornings.
Greg Litzinger.
And yeah, Greg's another one. I mean, there are guys getting it done without these cameras, but I think an advantage is having these things on food sources in the mornings, getting those pictures before the sun comes up, and knowing that deer is in that location, knowing where he's going back to bed, and being able to go in and cut him off.
Right.
I mean, you're basically pinpointing his line of movement, bed to food or food to bed. So, I mean, there's not too much guesswork there. But so those would be two things how I, plan to use them as far as specific individual tactics, to get on deer. But the the advantages of using a cellular camera is, outside of those two things that we just talked about, is having that yearly or annual data in real time, specifically around the rut. From running 100 plus cameras or whatever we've ran over the last 4 years, specifically on some of these bigger woods, public chunks that we've been focused on, is around the rut. We see that historical data being true, like the habitual patterns within a 3-day window, year over year. And it's great to have that information, but you really can't use it until the following year. But now, being able to have that stuff in real time, we see that these deer are holing up in areas for 3 or 4 days, around the rut, depending on when these does are coming into estrus. If having that information in real time, I mean, you can get the first picture that first day, and then you have a couple of days to kind of get in that area and make something happen. So that would be kind of my specific rut tactic would be put these things downwind of doe bedding areas, and wait for those bucks to start cruising, and then boom, as soon as you get that first picture, move into that area. So
I can testify to that because I learned that the hard way this year running, it was the first year where I really ran a handful of cameras up in the big woods, and that data's good for, like you said, a week at most. I mean, and if you're traveling there to hunt and you're pulling all your camera cards when you get there, and you're looking at stuff that happened a week prior, and now you've got a plan for the week forward, it can almost send you in the wrong direction. I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, I looked at a lot of data, and it's not in real time this year. And my thought was, well, look at all the deer here, and then you go there and there's no deer there, and they've already done what they were doing there, and they moved on. And like you said, especially those big wood deer and public land too, because you add a ton of variables with pressure. Right, it's not a whole lot of spots that are going to go more than a week without some sort of intrusion that's going to change patterns. So having that data in real time, if you really want to capitalize on it, that's the way to go about it. Because if the stuff's more than a week old, the pattern has likely changed.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, that's I can see that. Like, I don't know, just running cameras this year, that was a real eye opener for me, is how quick things change. And this is the most efficient way to have up-to-date information. And for guys that are working and, quote-unquote weekend warriors, like most of the deer hunters, a heavy percentage of people that deer hunt are, you've only got a weekend or your 1 week of vacation time. This might be the single purchase that you could make that are going to really heavily put the odds in your favor, because you can capitalize on real-time information.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
That,
being there the week prior.
yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Anything else as far as like that you foresee yourself maybe, you know, testing theories or monkeying around? I mean, you said downwind of doe bedding areas, obviously on food sources. Any other unique ideas that you've maybe been plotting and scheming in your head, what you're gonna try out with this?
Um, I mean, the majority of it, I guess, for me I mean, it is going to revolve around betting. Just to, everyone has so many theories on betting. The J hook, how they enter and how they leave beds. You know, beds are if beds are seasonal, if they're based on wind direction, and all of that, I think, obviously depends on terrain features and the type of topography and areas, the habitat you're actually hunting. But just to kind of document that, is kind of on the forefront of my mind, for 2019. I specifically, personally, I guess, hunt a lot of hill country, big woods, and then last year I started to hunt some more marsh and swamp ground, where it's a little bit. I felt like it was a little easier to kind of pinpoint, identify bedding, in the swamp and marsh versus hill country. Um, but just using them, for to monitor access and entry and exit routes from bedding areas, um, is kind of the one thing on the top of my mind.
Public land too. I mean, we're talking about private property and security and trespassing, but on
Hmm.
public land too, it can that could be the complete difference maker right there. If you put a camera up and you're like, oh, three other guys are coming in and out of here, like uh, 2 days prior to me planning on hunting there, and you might have not otherwise had any idea that that was going on there, and you get in there and you're like, why am I not seeing any deer? Like, there's so much sign here. Well, three guys just plowed through there the last 2 days in a row, or some guy drug the buck, drug the buck right past your trail camera that you were in there, in there chasing. That's a huge variable on public land is pressure. So that's as equally, I would say, as important to patterning deer as patterning people if you're competing on public land.
Yeah, that's a great point. Being able to monitor human intrusion and, the overall pressure of an area is, I mean, that's a big deal. Like you said,
Predators, yeah, outside of
yeah,
humans too. Predators. If you hunt where
yeah,
I hunt, black bears have an impact on where these deer are bedding. A lot of times they like to bed in the swamps. Well, that's a lot of times where the bears like to hole up too, and they don't really like to share the same area. So,
yeah.
well, I guess I don't know, man. Going down my bullet point thing, that covers a lot of the questions that I had. I guess let me ask you this: is there any other? So obviously the power of the application to be able to have access to the camera all the time, I would say sounds to me like one of the biggest standout features that sets this cellular camera apart from
Hmm.
others. Is there anything else in your mind that you think makes this more valuable than what else is available on the market?
Well, yeah, the software, the mobile application software is the biggest thing. Obviously, the warranty with what we do at Exodus, the 5-year warranty is kind of the baseline of what we do. So I think that, that's still a draw for some people. Um, on the mobile app side of things, the other thing that I didn't mention is just the ability to categorize and create data logs on the actual data that you're getting. Like, there's no more pulling cards and saving pictures and creating new folders and doing all of that stuff. I mean, the app, almost does that for you seamlessly. So again, there's time savings on the back end, just, staying organized with your photos and actual data that you're getting. Um, So that's again that's a big deal for me, especially when you're running so many large number of cameras. Um,
The 5 year warranty is more than a small thing. I mean, that's huge. That what basically what sets you guys apart from everyone else, and that is your protection on your investment. Uh,
yeah,
well, that for me, in my head, allows me to rationalize it as an investment versus a cost because I am guaranteed that I'm getting 5 years out of this. And I go into a lot of the big box stores and I look online all the time, and I'm always curious to see what people are doing with their warranty policy. And to this point, I haven't seen a whole lot of change in the industry. There's a lot of 1 year warranties or some 2 year warranties.
mhm.
But there's not really anybody that's doing what you guys are doing. And when you're buying electronics that you know you're going to put out in the elements that have the capabilities to get wet, damaged, and you're putting electronics in an environment that they're really not designed to be in. Obviously, you guys have special application that does everything possible to protect from that. And I can say to this point, I've probably had 12 cameras, and I think over 3 years, I've had two warranty issues. One being a microphone that just started to act up and had like a really weird sound of it, and you guys took care of it. And then the other was I had like an infrared, a filter that stuck or something, and I was getting some pink.
Yeah, an IR filter. Yep,
Yep.
yep,
So I mean that's pretty. I mean in 3 years to have those couple issues, it's kind of a testament to the quality. But to have that 5 year warranty there and know that I'm gonna get 5 years, I can literally take the price that I pay, divide it by 5 years, and know I'm getting that much out of it versus the variable option.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, the warranty is just the baseline. That is what we do. That's what we're always going to do. That'll never change. But the root of that policy comes from the business model. You know, if we were in retail stores where we were forced to manufacture or design a product to hit a specific price point because that's what the box stores could move, we would not be able to do it. And that's just that's just how it is. That's the truth.
Right.
Um, so yeah, the business model, we talk about it, but the business model is where the value is because that is what allows us to do everything that we do,
Yeah.
is being consumer direct. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the lifeblood of the business, I guess.
Uh, One question that I thought of that I don't want to miss that I know a lot of people are probably asking. Um, Say I'm a Sprint user or an AT&T user and I don't know what Verizon's coverage is like in the area that I hunt. Is there some data online or some way that people can go about knowing that if I do purchase this product that it is in fact going to
Mhm.
work where I'm hunting? And then how strong of a signal? I mean, I know where I'm going up north. I'm not going to have 4 bars, right? Like,
Right.
does that just slow down transmission time? Is there times where you could be in and out of service? How does that work?
Yeah. So let's cover the first point, the coverage or signal strength first for the actual device. So with all the advantages of having a cell camera, there are two disadvantages, and it's across the board with any cellular device. Is one, the device itself does need signal or coverage to work, and the more signal it has, the better it's going to work. Um, and then because it's a wireless device, therefore on batteries. So um, those are just kind of the two. I don't want to call them pain points, but those are definitely two downsides or disadvantages to the product. So the device itself, we're running a Cat4 module. So some of the industry leading specs that we've been talking about are because of the category of hardware that we're using inside the device. But you got to have at least two bars of signal, and even at 2 bars, it's going to be iffy. It's going to be hit or miss. The more signal you have, the better the product's going to work. and the longer, the faster the transmission times are going to be. Now, when we say 25-second transmission times, that's with full coverage. So as you're decreasing coverage, those transmission times are going to take a little bit longer. It's going to eat up a little more battery life. So you can check, if you're curious on whether or not you're going to have LTE coverage on your property, you can go to Verizon's website and they have coverage maps. But I will say this, their coverage, the map of their coverage is probably a little bit ambitious. So what we recommend, what we've been telling people is, if you're unsure if you're going to have sufficient coverage or signal to, for the device to operate correctly, is just purchase it. And the day that you get it, activate it, go out and walk your property and hold that thing in your hand and look to see what kind of signal it's getting. We offer a 30-day full, return policy, full refund. So that gives people 3 or 4 weeks to, kind of have that product in their hand and walk around their property to see if it's really going to work for them.
Okay.
So that's there's kind of no cookie cutter answer as far as the coverage thing goes, but you can definitely get the product in your hand and walk the property to see what the status of the signal strength is going to be.
Yeah, because that could come down to one end of your property, the thing works flawlessly, and the other end it doesn't, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if you were planning on having a certain location where you're going to use it, it could potentially not work there, and you might have to readjust your plan, or it might not work for you at all. So you need to know that, right?
Right. Yeah, you do need to know that. And at the same time, some of that signal strength could be dependent on what what's the word I'm looking for, what equipment Verizon has on the local tower too. If there's Verizon's always making upgrades to their network and changing out equipment. You could have a certain strength signal there one day, and 6 months from now it could increase or potentially decrease. So there are a lot of variables on the coverage side of things. Obviously, terrain features, elevation, heavily vegetated areas, like heavy canopies, are going to cut down on signal. So all of that needs to be kind of taken into consideration when you're looking at that stuff. So
is that something that's monitored by the application, or obviously if all of a sudden you stop getting photos or whatnot, but is there a way to know if there is a variable in the signal strength?
Signal strength is shown, but there's no way to tell what Verizon is doing
right.
on on the equipment end. They could be changing out antennas or going from different frequencies from band 4 to band 13 or vice versa. There's no way for us to really monitor that inside the mobile application. But as far as coverage on the device itself, yes.
Right. Okay, so and then the other thing that we'll just touch on that you just mentioned is which is really important, is the battery life. So it's using batteries at a higher capacity than the traditional camera, right?
Oh yes. Yep.
So 2 things. One, the conventional method of loading the thing up with either alkaline or lithium batteries, and then 2, do you have, or is there a third party that has additional power source?
Yeah. So we strongly recommend. We talk about this a ton, and it feels like we're just beating a dead horse. But we strongly recommend lithium batteries. There's a larger capacity. The voltage discharge is more consistent, and the performance under extreme conditions and use with hydrating devices like this, they just operate the device better. So internal lithium batteries, depending on signal strength and how the camera's set up, you're looking at anywhere from 500 photos to 3,500 photos on 3,000 milliamp hours, which is 8 AA lithium batteries.
Okay.
At about 3,200 milliamp hours, those batteries are going to go dead. That's I guess their capacity. And those will read 100% almost. somewhere between 3,000 3,200 milliamp hours. They'll start to decrease a little bit, but once that starts to happen, it's pretty much they're pretty much dead. So we strongly recommend external power, run an external power source. We do have a external solar panel with built-in 18650 rechargeable cells inside that panel. So the panel itself is actually charging the internal batteries, and then that plugs directly into the camera. So there's no that it kind of eliminates having a lead acid, having a solar panel tied to lead acid and lead acid tied to the camera. It eliminates that part of it. So using that product, the cameras have been working flawlessly. But you can, any 12-volt lead acid marine type battery will work. The only thing I will say is make sure if you're making your own or rigging something up, make sure that you have overcurrent protection, because you don't want to send any more than 1.3 amps to that device. It'll fry it. And I think that confuses people sometimes, because they're saying, well, the device is drawing the amperage, the device is drawing the current, and that is correct. But when you experience voltage drop, and Drew probably knows this, Drew would be the person to talk to, your brother, but when you see voltage loss or voltage drop, there's the possibility of the current to spike. So it's good to have, overcurrent protection. So 12-volt 1 amp power source with overcurrent protection will work with this camera.
So I'm gathering there you've fielded some inquiries from some people that have homebrewed up some power sources, huh?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's gear junkies out there that just like to tinker with things.
Yeah.
I think you see that a lot with like mobile stands and
Sure.
climbing devices and things like that. And I think that's a little less prevalent, like in the trail camera world. But at the same time, like, someone puts improper power to the device and they fry the damn thing. We just like to educate people on it. So
I get that. I can see myself in the younger years buying a jet ski battery from, whatever, O'Reilly's, and just I'm like, this plug fits here and this plug fits here. It should work, right?
Right. Yeah. So anything we could do to, help inform people and educate them to kind of make a better user experience, we're all about. So.
But you said the cellular camera, the solar panel has its own batteries inside the panel, so it's not actually charging the batteries in the camera. Does the camera still have to have batteries in it, or is that solar panel its own standalone external power source?
Good question. So at all times, regardless of what external power source you're using, you should use internal batteries. Now, what the camera will do is it'll draw from the external power source as the primary power source, and then at any point in time, if there's insufficient power there, then the camera will switch and draw from the internal power source. So it's good to have both, just in case that external goes dead. Our solar panel product, yes, it does have built-in battery cells in the or in the panel itself, so that the panel is actually charging the internal batteries inside the panel, which is, sending power to the actual camera itself, as long as the capacity is there.
Right. So the solar panel isn't charging the batteries that are inside the camera. It's charging its own set of batteries, and it's its
Correct.
own power source.
Yes, correct.
Right on. Man, I think that kind of covers it for me. Do you have anything I
think we missed something. I think there was something. There was a two-part question that I wanted to get back to.
Well, I asked you about the cellular coverage.
Yeah, there was a second part to that, and I don't think.
No, I think you got both of them, because I asked you basically, one, how you can know your signal strength, and two, how much signal strength that you actually need. And I think you answered both of those in real good detail. At least I understand it now, and if I can understand it, I venture that the good percentage of people listening to this will be able to.
Well, there was one other, thanks for jogging my memory. There's one other point on the, if the device does not have coverage or insufficient coverage, there's one point I wanted to just talk about real quick.
Yep.
And we've kind of put a safety feature in check. So let's say that camera has 2 bars of signal, and sometimes it's connecting, sometimes it's not connecting. The camera itself, so it goes through a trigger sequence, takes a photo. It goes to upload the photo to, the device tries to connect to the Verizon network to upload the photo to the server. And let's say it fails. It doesn't connect. The signal strength isn't there. The camera, the actual camera will receive a status failed, or upload failed command, and it'll try again for a second time. It'll attempt to connect to the Verizon network. If it does not connect on the second try, that data, the photo or video or whatever it's trying to upload, will go then into the queue, into that compressed folder on the SD card, and it will stay there until the next time the camera takes a photo or video and tries to connect to the network. So what that eliminates is if you were bouncing from 1 bar to 2 bars or 2 bars to 3 bars, and the signal strength wasn't very strong, without having that safety feature in check, the device would just keep trying to connect and upload that data to the server, and essentially would just run your battery dead.
Torch your batteries.
Just in a matter of a couple minutes. So that's, that was one question we had a couple times.
Anybody that hunts an area that has poor cellular service knows how that goes, because if your phone is constantly searching for your cellular service, it will suck your battery dead. And if you turn that thing on airplane mode, it's like, I don't know, my phone battery lasted 8 days.
Right.
Versus 8 hours, and that's what it's doing. It's just constantly trying to grab a signal, right? But so yours, it's not doing that until the next time it tries to.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly. I mean, just in general, if anyone out there listening has any questions or thoughts about the device itself, you can almost reference your phone. Just think about how your phone works,
right?
And the device is going to operate in a similar manner. All these devices have to go through pretty high level testing for Verizon to actually allow you on their network. So they all operate in a similar fashion, even though the device, the application of the device may be a little bit different than a mobile phone.
I did kind of want to talk to you today about your plans for deer hunting here personally, and your plans for Exodus over the next year, but I think we're going to have to save that. We're hitting the 1 hour mark. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. I certainly do. So maybe we'll plan on, and you know what, that's a good conversation to sit down face to face and maybe have some Maker's Mark and, get together, not wait another year like our traditional schedule goes, but that's just the pace of life, right? But let's reconvene sooner than later, and just 2 things wrapping up. One, I want to plug for you Trail Cam Radio. I've really enjoyed your podcast. You and Jake have a real good demeanor when you guys talk. The conversation's really real. I mean, you don't just beat the brakes off of trail camera stuff, but you get into a lot of technical stuff. And I made this point to Jake a couple days ago. I said, you guys are putting out content that no one else is putting out. Like, there's a lot of hunting podcasts, right? There's a lot of podcasts in general. I don't know that there's another trail camera podcast, and the information that you have that you're sharing, I don't know how else people would go about getting that. So I've really personally enjoyed it, and I just think you guys have a great podcast. And for anybody that wants to get a little more education on using trail cameras and just deer hunting in general, and I mean, you guys cover some random stuff and get into some random conversation that I've really enjoyed as well. So hats off to you guys on starting a great podcast and keeping it going.
Yeah, we appreciate that, man. It's It's a lot of freaking work, dude. As you know, I mean, you've been at it. It's almost 2 years.
Yeah,
You've been at it for 2
yeah,
years now.
yeah. We'll be 2 years here shortly.
Yeah, yeah. It is a lot of work, but it's pretty rewarding. So we appreciate that. Appreciate that comment.
Okay, and then right now, if people want to act on a cellular camera, you're running pre-sales, you're running a pretty sweet discount code. What can people do right now if they are interested? And then when can people expect to actually physically have product in their hand that they can be putting out in the woods?
Yeah, so we just launched the pre-sale campaign last Tuesday while we were at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg. So if for anyone that's interested, the product listing is live on our website, ExodusOutdoorGear.com. The product's called the Exodus Render, and you can use the promo code RENDER, RENDER, at checkout, and that'll give you the pre-sale price of $299. What I will say is we capped, anytime we do a pre-sale, we're generally just trying to drive depth inside of our customer base. So we limit, the quantity of what we're trying to do, because it's not really, I guess, a means to raise funds. It's just a means to show support to our customers. So we capped that at 300 units, which we're just about there. I'm not sure. I think as of yesterday, there were 30 or 40 of those left. So if you guys, anyone interested, use that code. It'll get you down to $299. That's save about $36. And those will be shipping in April. So about 5 or 6 weeks, people will have those in their hands.
So right now, $299 to purchase a camera, and then once that initial pre-sale is gone, the retail on the camera is what again?
$335. So yeah, so the full MSRP on the product's $335. The pre-sale price is $299. And even at full price, the majority of these cellular cameras from other companies are right around the $400 mark. So
I'm surprised, honestly, that you guys were able to do that. I expected a wider price range from the traditional camera to the cellular camera, and per our conversation earlier, it doesn't take but a couple fill up the tanks on a pickup truck, and you're already in the green by making the move on the cellular camera.
Yep, for sure.
Crazy good stuff, Chad. Thank you. Greatly appreciate your time as always, and let's plan on doing this again. And then, yeah, you said that code is RENDER at checkout. If anybody wants to get a camera right now, head over to your website, check all the other cameras out that you guys have up there, as well as some other, you got some like I don't know, camera gear. I don't know how else, accessories we could call them, right? Some other stuff on your website as well, right?
Yeah, there's a few different product categories there. There's cameras. There's, I think we call them trail camera necessities, but yeah, accessories, mounting devices, the solar panels on there, swag, hats, shirts. There's some XOP stuff on there. Yep, lots of good stuff over there. So they can find all that stuff there. If anyone has any questions, just shoot us an email at info@ExodusOutdoorGear.com, or Facebook message, or even direct message on Instagram or anything like that. We'd be happy to chat with anyone.
I'll tag, I will post a link on the show notes for your website, and a direct link to the render as well for anybody who wants to get on and see what it looks like and check it out in more detail. So thanks again, man. Have a great weekend. I appreciate you getting up early to do this. You said you were up at what, 3:30? I was up at 4:30. We were on the phone at 5:50 this morning, but we made it happen, and I'm appreciative of your time. So.
Yeah, same. Likewise, man. I know sometimes my schedule gets crazy, super busy, and I know we were trying to pencil this in, and I felt kind of bad doing it such at an early time on a Saturday morning. So I definitely appreciate your sacrifice and everything you guys are doing at the Deer Hunter podcast as well. So keep doing what you're doing.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk soon.